I do a comeback.
Yeah.
It's time for the Daily Tech News Show comeback. We're going to talk about virtual brains.
I'm a brain in a jar.
Hey.
Love it.
Put it in the car.
I'd subscribe with my AR device.
Yeah. Your Apple AR brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the thing I like about the Apple AR brain is it locks you into their brain world, you know? Like if I want to think to Scott and he's on Android brain, it's gonna be those sorts of things are going to always be the same, no matter what the technology.
Android brand, high fiber, no taste.
Android brand Android.
I would like to. Where would I like to travel? First of all, I like going to new places. I hate the journey that it takes to get somewhere. Like
See, I've learned to love the journey, and I want to help you learn to love the journey too.
You know what?
Buy my book, Bavaria. Not do anything to help you learn to love the journey, though.
That book cover reminds me of old pre-calculus book I had.
What? Really? You know, that's... Garrett,
what?
He means it in a good way, okay? It's not like it sounds.
It's not bad. I'm just saying it reminds me because it had a lot of...
The implication, though, is like that covers like a high school textbook.
Well, how about this? In high school,
you had very amazing covers on your high school textbooks.
Yes, we did. We had all sorts of things. It's like,
I love this cover.
Like, why would my algebra...
You're just saying that because it has the grid.
Yeah, no.
And the lines. Yeah. Fine, he sighed after a long pause. I have a plan. I'll need a crowbar.
You know, it'd be kind of cool. I've wondered if they could do this. Is if you flip through a book, it could just start talking to you. Like it would narrate. But it's powered.
You could do that with a Kindle.
Yeah, Kindle does that as you flip the page.
Yeah,
I think we have your technology already.
It's just not
was
in paper.
The best of times.
Roger wants it in a book, though.
Yeah,
no, he wants.
I want it kind of like a Harry Potter-ish thing, where you marry two incongruent technologies together to make it fun and exciting.
We're reading this book called Doomsday Book by Connie Willis for Sword and Laser, and it's set in the future. And one of the things is books have hollows. And the guy feels bad because he gives this book to a kid for Christmas and such an old book, it doesn't have hollows.
Wow.
Hollows?
HOLO, like holographic.
Oh, got it.
Hollows. Interesting.
Not hollows, like a hollowed out book that you keep your weed in.
Or not.
Tom.
You're letting your secrets out there.
My Austin, Texas is showing.
Blizzard filled that position.
What position?
So much for associate talent producer for Overwatch.
Oh.
Don't forget you're live on the internet right now, Roger. Before you say anything more. You haven't gotten yourself in trouble. I just want to...
Wait, how did I get myself in trouble?
No, you haven't. I just, you start going, those rat people made of rats.
Those brat people.
Still waiting to see how my application at the local abattoir is doing. Do you experience cutting meat? Well, yeah, every time I eat steak.
We get that a lot, buddy, okay? It's not funny.
Yeah.
All right, shall we begin?
Yes.
All right.
Just read when you tell me to go.
I should give you control, shouldn't I, Roger?
Yes.
There you go. All right. Here we go. Scott's going to read the open. 3, 2.
The Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, November 8th, 2017 from DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Scott Johnson from the recently apologized to Echo device. I have to tell you the story very quickly. I got mad at my Echo because it was playing something a little loud and irritated me upstairs. And I said the name and said, I said, shut off or something like that. And it felt kind of rude. So for the first time ever, I apologized to an Echo and its response back was, sorry, my word was sorry. And it came back and said, sorry, I don't know about that. So I'm just saying we don't yet have to worry about the feelings of our devices. And that's how I wanted to start today's show for me.
I love that where you could have just said from the Silicon Slopes of Utah. I'm Scott Johnson. We get an entire story about how you feel bad about insulting your Amazon Echo. Also with us, producer Roger Chang. Roger, do you feel bad about insulting any electronic devices?
I don't feel bad about insulting anything or anyone.
I know, right? There you go. At least you know how he feels. Let's start with a few tech things you should know. The group planning a hard fork of the Bitcoin blockchain that was expected to happen on November 16th has canceled the fork. Put your forks down. No fork. SegWit2X backers said they could not get a consensus and felt it was important to keep the Bitcoin community together.
I would agree, even though I barely understand what they do.
No
also,
fork.
Instagram stories will now let users upload photos and video older than 24 hours. Here's the catch, though. The stories posts will still disappear after 24 hours. So sure, you got an older thing and you want to put it up there and you forgot to, and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have done this. Once it's up there in the stories part of Instagram, it will be gone in a day.
ZDNet's Mary Jo Foley reports that Microsoft's new resume assistant in Office integrates with LinkedIn data to do cool things like suggest ways to craft your resume, describe your experience based on like, oh, well, people in this industry often describe it this way. Maybe that's how you should do it. That'll happen right there in Microsoft Word. Features available now to Office 365 Windows users in the Insiders program, and it'll come to everybody in the coming months.
I'm real quick. I just would like to say to this, and I mean this facetiously, so to save your emails, okay, everybody, but I now finally understand what LinkedIn is for. Finally, US users of iOS 11.2 beta 2 can start testing out Apple Pay cash in beta right now. The system lets you, as a user, send and receive cash in Apple's iMessage to anyone else who uses iMessage, and it is on the beta as well, so they need to be using it. But that's big news if you care about paying that way.
Now, here are some more top stories. Facebook and Australia's e-safety government agency are partnering on a system to combat revenge porn. So if someone were worried that this person and I aren't getting along and I know they have this picture of me, they can contact e-safety, which may then advise them to message copies of those photos to themselves in Facebook Messenger. Facebook would then make a hash identifier of the image. They say, we're not going to store the image, we're just going to store the hash, but we'd be able to block anyone else from posting an image that matched that hash. Facebook told Australia's ABC that there are 3 other countries besides Australia participating in the trial.
I have a theory that makes me a little worried about this. So I actually think it's a good idea. However, there's a workaround already in my head. Not that I've done this, but it seems like if you send that photo, Facebook makes the hash, which is basically a digital imprint of what's going on there, so it can match it later. All it would take is for somebody to change that image in some way.
Yeah.
Take a picture of it on a screen, which would distort it enough to be still recognizably you and still harmful, but not match the hash. So while I think this is probably a pretty good step in that direction or in the right direction, I think it's probably got issues. Assuming
that most of the time people conducting this kind of abhorrent behavior aren't going to go to that trouble, it's an interesting way to go about it. It's on the one hand, the idea, let me state it this way, the idea that if I'm worried someone's going to post a picture of me that they have in revenge or because they're angry at me, I can say, hey, stop that picture without having to share that picture. That's great. When you're talking about Facebook, which has a lack of trust with a lot of people, wonder how many people are really going to be feeling comfortable saying, all right, I'm sending this thing through. Yeah. I hope they aren't really storing it.
Just do like Sia and send it out yourself, and then everyone's okay.
Yeah.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, who we hear a lot from on this show, has sources that say Apple is developing an augmented reality headset that would ship in 2020. At least that's the idea. The device would supposedly carry its own screen and run an Apple-designed chip with a whole new OS, some sort of reality OS. Apple's AR team supposedly works on projects under the code name T288 and uses the HTC Vive for testing purposes, which is sort of interesting. Gurman and Alex Webb also have sources who say Apple may come out with an iPad in 2018. that includes Face ID and removes the home button. I would think that'd be the iPad Pro, but who knows until that happens. They would in effect be leapfrogging over the I don't remember the name of the difference between the Touch ID that was an actual physical button and the one that was not and was tactile, but that means we'll skip that altogether because that currently is not an option on any of the iPads Pro or otherwise. So anyway, that'll be interesting. But back to the
haptic button. You're talking about you wouldn't get the haptic button. Yeah.
Right. Haptic. There you go. I couldn't think of that word. Back to the AR VR thing. It's weird to me that they're testing with a Vive. Or I guess not weird, but if they're talking about doing a augmented reality headset and they're using a Vive to test things, well, that means they're also going to have it's probably mixed reality headset. Wouldn't you think? Because
I am curious about that. Like that could simply be like, what hardware do we have lying around that we can run this thing on while we work out the kinks? Right? It might not have anything to do with form and function, but it does imply that at this point anyway, what you see in augmented reality would be a camera view, right? So and it's got a screen. It says it's got a screen. So if it's got a screen, I mean, I could see Apple saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you this real slim, cool looking shades. They just look like you're wearing these like futuristic, cool, glasses. But honestly, it's the cameras that are going to be showing you reality. You're not actually going to see through them. And those screens then will be your ability to view. You won't be able to tell you're not seeing reality because it's such good resolution or whatever. Like that would be the kind of thing I could see them aiming for and then wanting to unveil.
I agree. Only other thing I would say is if they're going to really make a new iPad Pro using Face ID, I need to see what needs to happen there is we need to gain the extra real estate and maybe even an edge-to-edge solution on the screen. Like
bezels.
Do that, there's no point. There's no point.
No, and Gurman did say that it sounds like it would have either thin bezels or almost no bezels.
Yeah.
Over the next few months, Chrome's going to start blocking certain types of browser redirects that load unwanted pages. Hooray. The first phase will block ads that try to open a new page without being clicked. So in those cases, a toolbar will note the event in case you want to be redirected. You're like, no, that's okay. I maybe that's a function I like. I don't know. The second phase will block pages that reload as an ad while loading the clicked link in a new tab. This is a way to defeat pop-up blocking. This is one I think is awful, where you click a link, it loads an ad in your tab, and then loads the link you clicked in a new page. That's just not the way the web's supposed to work. So block that. Those two will come in Chrome 64 and 65. The third and final phase, which is supposed to come in January, will block hidden elements or ad links disguised as control buttons, like play and pause on a video, or sometimes they'll make it look like you're going to control a video and it actually opens a link. Those are awful, and those should absolutely be blocked as well.
None of this is talking, at least that I can see. I'm re-going over the article again, but I don't see anything about the stopping video from auto playing. Wasn't that also coming soon?
Oh yeah, no, there's all kinds of other things. They've got an ad blocker that's going to be built into Chrome, supposedly coming next year. And there was a whole situation about what ads they won't block and how that will work, and if that gives Google too much power because they're an ad company, and how that works. And honestly, the Verge article about this brings up that question too, which is, hey, these are all great. Don't want browsers to be allowing this kind of behavior. Nobody minds that all the browsers block pop-ups. That's awesome. But this is Chrome using their power for good. What's the line? Where's the line where Chrome starts saying, oh, we're just blocking any ads that don't have this identifier, this open source identifier in them that verifies it? Well, the only people that use that identifier are our own ads right now. So we're blocking all ads that aren't ours. That's the kind of stuff people are worried about.
I need to look at, I would love to see current data on leadership in the browser market. I don't know where Chrome is compared to where IE used to be, where IE is now, or Edge now, or any of those things. I would love to know if they are inching closer to where Microsoft was thought to have too great a monopoly on browsers, and if that has, I don't know, any blowback on them as well, because, for a long time, Chrome was the little browser that could, and then it was the one that you wanted, and now it's the one that seems to be the biggest, and that always has a way of coming back around on itself. It's very interesting, that whole market. Even in 2017, browsers still a thing, man.
So here's the thing you can always do. If you like Scott are like, what is the browser market share these days? Go to netmarketshare.com. and you can get the browser market share. Chrome right now is at 35%. Internet Explorer at 12.52%. I believe that must count. No, wait a minute. This has got to be old. No, this is October 2017. Really? IE is still at 12.52%. Wow. Yeah. Chrome 55 at 7.4%. Oh, I'm sorry. They're breaking up Chrome by version. So Chrome 61 is 35%. If you have to total all this up, Chrome is essentially like just about 50%. Firefox is 6.53%. And IE is 12.52%. Now, granted, that's all operating systems, all device types on the desktop. If you go to mobile, it's going to be different. If you go to console, it's going to be different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Logitech in the news. They have notified users of its cloud-operated Harmony Link device that it's going to shut down the service for the hardware March 16th, 2018. It's not that far off, meaning you'll no longer be able to control it with an Android or iOS smartphone, though the remote itself should still work. If your Link is still under warranty, though, Logitech's going to give you a free upgrade to the Harmony Hub. And if you're out of warranty, you might get a discount on the Harmony Hub. Well, you will. There's no might. You will get a discount.
You can if you want it, but you'd still have to pay to replace the thing that you bought in 2011, intending to use for a long time. Here's the thing: I've used Logitech Harmony remotes since before Harmony was part of Logitech, and I have only ever bought 2 of them. I had a Harmony remote that I used forever until that thing was just broken, and then I replaced it, thankfully for me, with a Logitech Harmony that has the hub. So I'm lucky, but man, if my Harmony remote had broken in 2011, I probably would have bought a Harmony Link device.
I don't know why it is. I've always been hesitant to pick up a Harmony remote or one like it. And I remember all my friends, I had friends with home theater stuff, and they were all, oh, you got to get it. It's the best thing ever. It'll change your life. And I always seemed to be resistant because I didn't like the idea of all these eggs in one basket. And that seems dumb now that I think back on it. Like, so what? It's a remote. I really would like to have this one.
I don't want a universal remote that has all my remotes in it. That's too many eggs in one basket.
Right. Yeah. And because of that bad habit or habit, I don't know if it's bad, but this habit of avoiding that, I've got so many dumb remotes, Tom, it's ridiculous. Even just right here by this in-office TV. Even with
my Harmony, I end up using the Roku and the Apple TV remotes because they'll have something on it, like a headphone jack on the Roku or the voice activation on the Apple TV. Like, it's just not as simple as it used to be either. So, I mean, on the one hand, don't overestimate this. If you have a Harmony Link, you can keep using it. You just can't use the web connected stuff like your apps, right? So it's not like they've bricked it. You'll see a lot of people saying they bricked it. They didn't really brick it. They just reduced its functionality. But that does suck, especially if you've had it for a long time.
Sure.
Researchers at Dartmouth have developed a program that can determine ways to optimize your router's Wi-Fi coverage and then 3D print an object that you can make reflective to put on the antenna and guide the signal. This is a more effective version of wrapping aluminum foil or a soda can around to reflect the Wi-Fi away from the window and towards that room in the corner that doesn't get good signal. But the program optimizes it so you don't have to play around with it. You just print using Y-print and boom, you got your device. They have not released this software yet. They have described it in a paper, but they haven't let anybody else use it yet.
Huh. Wow. Will it help my my old Pringles can extender that I used to do?
Yeah, it might. It might be able to do that. I haven't looked into how the software determines the parameters closely yet. But you know, if you can tell it like, hey, I just want to have a Pringles can up on my roof shooting that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, it seems like I don't know. It almost seems like a little hackery thing to do and sort of a sideline thing to do. But man, I have been having the biggest problem where I live with new construction, creating additional bandwidth, or not bandwidth, additional signal use on all these spectrums, and it's messing with stuff. My Bluetooth acts funny. My 5.4 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi signals are weird. Like, everything's being affected by all of this stuff. And if you look up just a Wi-Fi selection when you go check for new Wi-Fi signals, it's hundreds and hundreds of Wi-Fi stations now. So it seems like maybe, I don't know, this seems like maybe as relevant as it's ever been. This is a way for me to, not so much about distance, but clarity.
You listen, the thousands of you in the audience saying, I don't need to print anything out. I just wrap that thing around there. Works pretty good. You're absolutely right. This isn't about that. This is about, do you want the perfect wrapping parabola? Do you want the most efficient direction? Have you had that one little corner of your house that you just can't quite seem to get the signal? This is for that. This is for optimization geeks who really want to have that perfect situation. And honestly, for the paper, it's more about determining, how Wi-Fi signals propagate and what the science behind that is.
Yep. And plus people like 3D printing stuff that they normally couldn't. So this is not a surprise to me or anyone here.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines. You can get it at dailytechheadlines.com as a podcast to put in your podcatcher, or you can find it on the Amazon Echo as a flash briefing, in the Anchor app as a daily channel that you can favorite. You can even get it in Google Home thanks to Anchor. That's all Daily Tech Headlines, 5 minutes or less, and you're up to date every day. And that's a look at our top stories. So, at the Web Summit in Lisbon, Uber's head of product, Jeff Holden, announced that Uber will test its Elevate flying taxi service in Los Angeles, hopefully by 2020, in addition to the 2 previously announced test locations of Dubai and Dallas-Fort Worth. Uber also signed a Space Act agreement. This is a thing NASA can do with third parties to not have to go through Congress to get approval to have certain partnerships. A Space Act agreement with NASA has been signed to create a new traffic control system to manage low-flying vehicles. Uber's one of a dozen companies developing flying taxi services right now that intend to use some kind of vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. There's lots more to talk about as far as who's doing this and what Uber plans to do, and it's all in the concept phase. They don't actually have these vehicles yet, and a lot of people say they never will, but signing that agreement with NASA to work on some kind of traffic control system is helping to get over one of the biggest hurdles to doing this, which is a regulatory hurdle. If you can come up with a good traffic control system, you have a much better chance of convincing the FAA that you can pull this off. All of that said, Scott, we're living in a world where at least 19 large companies like Boeing are doing flying car research for real. Not like, hey, maybe someday, but like, yeah, we think by 2020 we can launch some vertical takeoff and landing taxis.
What's crazy, I mean, it does feel like an old forecast episode come to life in a lot of ways. This used to be the thing of certainly science fiction and speculation, and wouldn't it be cool if, and all of that. And even lately you hear a lot of people saying, well, we never got those flying cars we were promised. Boy, this sure smacks of that possibility. And this is real money and real brain power being spent on a real thing, not just, a think tank going, wouldn't it be cool if? So I'm all for this research. I think people should slow down their excitement just a tiny bit in terms of where we're going to see this most. It's going to be like city-based services for the most part, because I'm trying to imagine some sort of vehicle that will land on my rooftop. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no. In fact, the Uber plan, the Elevate plan, is to lease rooftops with certain large property holders, people who own multiple tall buildings, and usually the places that might already have a helicopter landing on the roof of the skyscraper, and say, hey, we want to lease a certain amount of time and space to test these things with the idea that eventually our service might use your rooftop. But one of the examples they give for Los Angeles is, instead of taking the 32 hour and a half long drive from LAX to the Staples Center downtown, anybody who's ever gone to E3 knows that place very well, you could take this taxi, which would get you there in 20 minutes, because it just flies over everything.
Yeah. Plus, I think it's important not to forget that as everyone's struggling to get automated cars to be a thing, and they're working on all the aspects of that, including where the AI is and how good it's going to be and how human free it needs to be, or how many people do need to be in the car and this sort of stuff, as that's all being argued about in the background, quadcopters and autonomous flying vehicles, whether controlled by people or AI, have just been advancing and advancing and advancing. Collision detection, all of that stuff is arguably easier in a sky with less variables. There's just less to worry about. Now, I'm sure there's things I'm not thinking of, but if I had to compare trying to get to a place where the technology is right for automated flying and automated cars, we're going to get there quicker with the flying. Not to say that this won't launch in these small markets or these test markets without somebody in the cockpit. I'm not saying that so much as I am saying I think the end ultimate goal here is this taxi service will be Johnny Cab, and you're going to go up on top of that thing. It's going to pick you up, take you where you want to go, and then in 10 minutes, rather than the hour and a half in traffic, you're there and you're done in New York or LA or some other major metropolitan area.
Yeah, and you're right about the challenges. I don't know if I would call them easier, but they're more straightforward, right? It's hard to manage airspace because you got 3 dimensions. So that's tricky, and that's why they want to partner with NASA to help figure this out. On the other hand, if you can say, hey, the air corridor at this altitude between these 2 buildings, one at LAX, out of the flight path, one over at Staples Center, is ours, then you don't have to worry about like checking for lane changes and looking to see if if there's something in the road, or there's all these variables on the ground that probably aren't going to be there. Bird strikes, maybe something you have to worry about, but there are fewer obstacles, fewer lane oriented things, more flying oriented things. So I go back and forth in my head, like, okay, well, it seems more direct because there's nothing else up there. But if this becomes common, maybe now we got a lot of things up there that you have to look out for. And the risk is greater when you can fall in 3 dimensions rather than just slide around in 2 dimensions.
That's true. Plus, you're talking about airspace where, an Amazon courier service is also being developed, and who knows how that stuff gets up and going. So then now you really do have unpredictable traffic where something was malfunctioning or whatever. So all of that stuff is true, but I always look at it this way. If I want to take a bus from LA to New York, or if I want to fly from LA to New York, the statistically safer route is the air.
Sure.
Well, why? It's because we've created this system of like, a pretty automated process. Even the landing and taking off is so much more automated than it used to be. Whereas that bus has got a million factors to think of between there and there that are human related, mechanically related, everything else. So I do think the sky holds a lot of potential, and I like that they're all working on this. But I guess I'm amazed that we're talking about a thing that used to be just almost a joke. Even in science fiction, it almost felt like a joke. We're just never going to get to a place where that kind of thing is possible. And yet here it is, real money, real people.
Meet George Jetson. Yeah.
Yep. It's awesome.
I know that there's a lot of skepticism about whether VTOLs can really work. Can they really be electric? Can they really be fully automated? Can you really get the regulatory hurdles out of the way to make this safe? And even if you can do all that, can you convince people, yeah, I want to take an elevator up to the 100th floor of a skyscraper and get in a helicopter with no pilot and have it whisk me through the sky? These are all big hurdles. But the fact that there are so many, I mean, it's not just Boeing, it's Airbus. It's Sergey Brin's thing, Kitty Hawk. He's got 2 of them at Google. There's so many companies looking into this. There's the one in Dubai. There's the one in Saudi Arabia. Like they're all over the place. Yeah. And so it feels like, just statistically, Roger, back me up here, doesn't it feel like one of these has got to succeed?
One of them, actually, I would say even 2. I think really the biggest hurdle that I see is and I've harped on this before, is just, can you make money at it? Right? It's all in good. You can get pretty much all the issues that have been raised are not insurmountable. They can be solved. The question is, as a business, can you even break even on this operation? Because especially running vertical landing and takeoff aircraft, they're just very maintenance intensive. Right, they just require a lot of TLC.
Well, that's partly what these companies are trying to fix. Is like, can we make them less maintenance intensive? Can we make them easier to fly? The challenges mount up. It starts to look very daunting. But
yeah, it's
Uber thinks they can do it. Uber thinks they can keep the ride down to like $20. They're Jeff Holden's still saying like, you'll want to do this and not own a car. It'll be cheaper than owning a car.
Yeah.
All right.
And don't forget,
he's an optimist. He is
Uber cars on the other end are part of this. It's not flying you everywhere. It's, I take a car from LAX to the LAX point that's outside of airspace. Then I take the taxi to Staples Center, and then I take another car to my hotel.
Wait, are you saying my transit system will now become its own ecosystem that I have to buy into?
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah. Oh, I can't ride with you to the hotel. I'm on Lyft. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. And also, it starts to make me wonder, stories like this and conversation like this starts to make me wonder if automated cars and the Uber on the ground world isn't a stopgap to this other thing anyway. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going to skip straight to we're going to be in the air all the time. I don't know. There's always a last mile question, but
Yep.
Very interesting.
All right, let's get to our message of the day. In our analysts Slack, Sakani Wright noted a reason why Amazon cut back its grocery delivery. Remember, we talked about, well, that's odd. They just bought Whole Foods. Are they just going to throw in with Instacart now somehow? Why would they be cutting back on their grocery delivery? Well, Sakani says the areas where service is being cut, I believe all have groceries delivered by the U.S. Postal Service instead of Amazon's own drivers. The post office has been doing an experiment since 2014 with what they call customized delivery services, which allows them to do weird things like grocery deliver at 4 a.m. on Sundays. That experiment, after one extension, officially ended on October 31st. Now, I assume Amazon was planning on another extension of the experiment, but it wasn't approved for whatever reason. So, fresh service may return either once Amazon gets a new deal with the USPS or once they build out an appropriate network to service those areas. So that makes a lot of sense. And he's got a link to a consumerist.com article about the U.S. Postal Service delivery system that expired on October 31st. And hey, if you haven't been keeping up at our website, dailytechnewsshow.com, you may have missed Sakani's latest edition of his column, Your Private Driver, which goes into details of how drivers for companies like Uber and Lyft do or don't make money. And he's got experience as a driver doing this. So go check that out, dailytechnewsshow.com.
Nice.
All right, Mr. Scott Johnson, thank you so much for joining us as always. Of course, if you're wondering, we didn't mention at the top of the show, I forgot, Sarah Lane, as I mentioned yesterday, on assignment, but she will be back with us tomorrow. In the meantime, Scott, if folks want to find out more about what you got going on, where should they go?
Well, I would like, you know what I'm going to mention? I'm going to mention this. When I was at BlizzCon last week, I got to see you and got to hang out with a bunch of friends and stuff, and it was great. The big surprise for me at this particular con was how many people came up and in the context of DTNS said, oh my gosh, I love it when you're on Wednesdays, or I really liked your art tech segment, or other comments like that. I've been a DTNS supporter, they would tell me, and it was great. It was like, wow, yeah, these worlds have collided more than ever. And so to those guys, I want to say thanks. Thanks for coming up to me and talking to me. Thanks for supporting this show. And also, the good news is the live panel that we did at the event, which used to be locked behind the virtual ticket wall over at Blizzard, is now out and in the open for anybody to get their hands on. There's an audio version on the podcast feed, but if you go over to blizzcon.com and go into the VODs, you'll find it there. It's now public, and you can watch that entire thing. Tom was in that audience, and you can almost sense his presence, his technical presence there. So go check that out. That's a fun thing to do. And if you're looking for other ways to follow me, check out frogpants.com or find me on Twitter at Scott Johnson with way more characters than I used to have.
Oh man, look, I loved the people who came up and just said, hey, I just want to shake your hand and say hello. I'm a big fan of Daily Tech News Show. Way more than I expected. Folks at BlizzCon did that. So big thanks to every one of you who did, and a big hello back again from inside your ears this time. But also, I cannot express how excited I was to see the instance on stage at BlizzCon. It's something since I first ever went to BlizzCon. The first time I went to BlizzCon, I was like, they should have Scott on stage doing a show. Like this all just makes sense. Why wouldn't they do that? So I was very, very, very happy to see that.
Well, you're extremely nice to say that. I think it went off without a hitch, and hopefully if the numbers are good, and it would help if people went and watched it now, even because they'll see more of those numbers, they'll do something again next year, and we don't know what that'd be, but it was a really cool opportunity. And I have to say, what made it great for me was knowing that not just my wife and kids, but all my podcast buddies were out in that audience, and somehow made all that stuff even easier. So thanks to you and everybody who was there to support us. That was awesome.
Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Sarah Lane and Justin Robert Young. We will all talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Goodbye. I did that because we were at 29:59.
Oh.
So saying goodbye made it exactly 30 minutes.
Wow.
30 minutes on the dot.
I think that timer thing's great.
Yeah.
First time I've been here to use it, and I think that's awesome. It makes me want to make my own for my own.
Good work, Roger.
That's really good. I mean, it was, I don't know. Maybe it depends on who you are. It might make some people panic, but for me, it's like the perfect little room.
No, well, one of the things I love about our little music gimmick on the Roundtable show, where we hit 15 minutes and Roger just starts playing some soft music to let us know, like, hey, okay, time to move on, is that I don't have to think. There's one less thing as a host that I have to I don't have to be looking at the clock. And this is the same thing. It's like, oh, it's turning orange. All right.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
The trick is, it's like the Oscars. When the music starts playing you off, you either know how to handle that gracefully or you stay there even while the music's
well, yeah, with this, nobody else knows.
Right.
So you feel like, no, I've got one more point. Like, really, whatever. The music, I try not to make it like Oscars level where they make it really loud or anything. But yeah, a little different.
Whole different deal.
30 minutes. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind going 32 minutes. I'm just being a numbers geek right now that we've hit 30. Exactly.
I like an efficient, you know, that's great. And I'm not even that big of a nerd for it, but I think it felt really good.
Nerd titles. The Internet of Bricked Things.
It's not bricked. Okay, got it.
Another brick in the wall on the IoT wall. Print the power of a Pringles can. And I used to do that. I still used to download Chrome browser. You kind of have to when you first start Windows 10. It's not like anything else is loaded. Up, and Uber away. LA to get flying Ubers in 2020, a year after Blade Runner. Actually, were there flying taxis in Blade Runner? I thought it was just the cops.
Well, there were other flying cars besides the cop, but you just kind of saw them in the distance. So
yeah, I don't know if
my presumption is some of them were taxis.
Yeah, they were more explicitly taxis in Fifth Element.
Yeah,
there were lots of those.
Uber leaping tall buildings by 2020. Uber ready for lift off.
Get it?
Get it? Stick a fork in it. There's no fork. No fork for you.
There is no fork.
No fork.
That's pretty good.
In LA 2020, you'll believe an Uber can fly. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Uberman. And he's still using GPS to find out where you are on the same block.
I love this one. Sorry, this is never going to make it, but Scott fibs about understanding what LinkedIn is for.
That's pretty funny. All right, I need a title. What are we picking? The Uber. Up and Uber away. Uber leaping tall
Uber
building.
Ready for lift off. Well, we didn't really mention lift. Uber's LA plan to take flight in 2020.
Oh, it's so long.
All right. Up and Uber away.
All right. It's silly, but that's fine.
That one works.
Yep, that works. Up and Uber way.
I also like Facebook's porn hash is pretty good.
Good old Facebook.
That's a pretty daunting thing because what you're being asked to do is put a photo up there that you think someone might hold against you someday. It's just weird.
Well, and that's what I was trying to get at. Like, if you trust Facebook, you're like, okay, this is perfect because I don't need to, tell anybody, but I can make sure this thing stays away and nobody will know.
Yep.
If you don't trust Facebook, you're going to be like, I'm not giving you I'm not giving you that photo.
Yeah.
Whenever I have to restart my machine, I have to re-edit all of my ID3 tags.
You have to reboot to do that.
No, like when you have to reboot to do updates, like OS updates. And then when I come back to do the Audacity, because it got shut down, it doesn't remember the ID3 tag. I'm all into efficiency.
I'm with you. I also likes that.
Thrumwald wants to know why the hash couldn't be created locally. That's a great question.
Yeah, good point.
I'm sure Facebook's saying, well, you already have Messenger, so we'll just do it for you, and we promise we won't keep it. But if you could have a special app that could be audited so that people know that the code's doing what it says it's supposed to do, you could do it locally. You absolutely could, and then just upload the hash.
I want some hash brown.
I'm not eating potatoes these days, though. It's very un-Irish of me.
You're on the no carb diet.
I'm not on the no carb diet. I'm on the no potato diet.
Oh,
that's a little more.
That's a hard diet.
It's actually easier, and it cuts out almost as many calories as doing the no carb diet without cutting out the nutritious carbs.
So you can do like a whole grain, bread or something.
Yeah, I do. I eat whole grain bread. I eat crackers. I even eat pasta. Try not to eat too much of it. But potatoes are virtually empty of nutrition. I mean, they're not totally, especially if you eat the skins. But
what if you're dipping a whole sleeve of Ritz crackers into ranch dressing?
The ranch dressing provides you protein.
I mean, that would technically be okay under my rules, but it's violating the spirit of it, I think.
I agree.
I don't think I would do that
today, but I may have done that today. I'm just saying.
What did I do? Eileen brought us home fried chicken the other night. And I was like, oh, that's great. Then she brought it home and it had mashed potatoes and gravy in it. And I'm like, here, you eat it. It's not mine. I didn't eat it.
Well, I'm proud
Make
of you.
the biscuit.
I'm terrible at committing to things like that.
It's hard. It definitely helped me at BlizzCon though, because a lot of times when you're at conferences like that, the easy food is the potato food, and it's the one that's going to pack on the most pounds.
Yep. Potato food is the easy food.
Yes. That's what my mommy used to say back in old County Potato.
I metabolize different at that event. I end up walking so much and so hyped up that it doesn't matter what I eat. I burn everything. Just burn.
Oh yeah. Just nervous energy.
Yeah.
That was the one thing. Is first time I've had the Apple Watch at a BlizzCon. I did not walk nearly as much as I thought I did.
I did all right, generally.
Because yeah, in my mind, I usually go, "Oh, well, I'll be walking so much that'll make up for a lot of stuff," but not as much as I expected.
Not so much, huh?
Well, you do a lot of sitting down, listening to talks, and sitting down and eating ice cream and. Sitting down and watching. I mean, I kept running into the thing where I'd be like, oh, wait, but it's telling me I need to stand up, but I'm in the middle of
you're in the middle of a con, you stand up, someone will leap on your chair.
Yeah, exactly.
There's people behind us almost went to blows for
blows.
Yeah, there was somebody was holding seats in the press area with a couple of jackets, but not people, and there was some really angry people.
I was at the Comic-Con where that guy stabbed someone in the eye with a pen for a seat in Hall H.
Oh man, that would have gone poorly.
It did. I guess he got arrested.
Really?
For assault.
Hall H at Comic-Con?
Yeah, you can't stab someone in the eye.
Damn. How could you do that?
Because people don't understand. Like, part of it is that for anyone who doesn't know, Hall H is like this big cement auditorium at Comic-Con, and typically those are all with the AAA panels that are held in there, and so they make you wait. The lines are long, and the lines take forever to pass through. Right, so you'll be, say it's on a Saturday or Friday, you'll line up in the morning around 8. You probably won't get in until like 1 or 12 or 1. So you're just waiting that entire time. People just get kind of frustrated. It's like people sitting in traffic when they lay on the horn, they throw stuff, or they do worse. I don't know. So I avoid those situations now.
I've never seen anyone throw anything in traffic, luckily.
I've seen people throw things at me physically.
In traffic?
Well, in a 4-way intersection. Yeah.
Wow.
I had a friend who threw
Were you wearing that shirt that says "Please throw things at me"? Though.
No, I also had
Okay.
some jerk. This was back in high school. He shoved his car into me and he pushed me into the intersection from the crosswalk.
Oh, jeez.
I mean,
That's just awful.
if
Yeah.
he wasn't in a car, I would have beaten the bejesus out of him. Because, well, actually, no, he would have had been in the car to push me into the intersection. He was being a jerk, and I don't know why. Like I'm like just
Kids.
no problem to drive around me. It's like I don't know. People do really BS.
I did end up on someone's hood in front of a Taco Bell one time.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh no!
I was walking out
Do
of
tell.
there was the hole in the wall bar in Austin. Oh wait, it was Jack in the Box, not a Taco Bell. There was a Jack in the Box right next to the hole in the wall. So we're walking out of the bar. We come walking. Somebody's coming through the drive-thru and they're coming out. And me and two other friends are walking, and they just kept coming. And I ended up like leaping onto their hood so that they didn't knock me
Did
down.
you know them, or were they like someone?
No. I mean, they weren't going fast. They were just rolling out, it's drive-through. It's coming from a dead stop, but still.
And Ken in the chat room says we should be glad we missed the LA drivers shooting each other back in the 90s. I remember that. That was in the 90s. That was the late 80s into the 90s.
When you say you remember it.
I remember seeing all the news reports. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
There was a little
That too.
there was a political ad about and you can tell you it was late 80s because it was super racist. But basically they had a bunch of Arab men dressed, with the traditional outfit, and they were kind of posited as terrorists, but the guy who's like leading the whole thing is like, you got to be careful when you're there. Make sure you don't make eye contact, do all this because, LA freeways are filled with wackos who are going to shoot you if you cut in front of them.
That was always exaggerated, though. I mean, it happened, but it was not. It was like Bernie Getz and the subway vigilante stuff. Like
it wasn't
happened,
a Charles
but
Bronson movie.
it wasn't everyone's daily experience. Like Steve, what was it? Is it The Jerk where Steve Martin just pulls out his gun and he's like shooting on the freeway?
I only remember bits of that movie. I remember the glasses and the cross-eyed people because of the magnets.
L.A. Story. It was L.A. Story. Thank you.
L.A. Story.
All right. Now the question is,
There's a question?
what did I forget to do?
Oh, I thought it was a quiz.
Because I got distracted by talking about freeways and getting hit by cars.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that LA is a lot nicer than what I remember as a kid. Like, the traffic isn't as terrifying. And by kid, I mean back in high school.
Well, it's because, there's probably some truth to it, but also back then, everything's more terrifying the younger you are, I think.
Yeah, that's true too.
No, I remember rolling out of the Staples Center because we were back when me and Dan Mitchell were still on Screensavers, and we went to an event there. And we met up with an old intern, and we were driving out to Santa Monica, and we got on the freeway. And I remember passing what neighborhood in East LA. It's like, oh my God, don't get a flat tire here. And I went by that area recently, and it's like 100% improved. It's like it does not have that same, not just the same feeling, but before, not only did you have bars in the window, you had chain link fence with razor wire on top of it. Like, I can understand the bars in the windows, but it just felt like a war zone.
Well, Manhattan, the first time I ever went to Manhattan was like 96, I think. And I felt like, okay, got to be careful in New York City, because I'm not from here. And I got to keep my eyes open. I don't feel that way at all going to Manhattan now.
Manhattan is...
Yeah.
The first time I went here, I remember it was with Patrick Norton, and he kept telling me, he's like, oh, this used to happen here. This used to happen here. That
Yeah.
And remember when all the big names started moving to Times Square, people was like, it's losing its soul, the grittiness. The topless.
Right. Yeah, Times Square is like a tourist destination now. It's not a seedy place.
Downtown San Francisco used to be like that. There used to be a bunch of not just topless cinemas and stuff, but there also used to be like second run theaters and stuff all the way down to the Ferry Building. It's all gone. No more open air arcades where kids and indigent people just kind of while away the day. stuffing quarters in the machines.
Boo. I miss those.
Arcades.
Open
Actually, I don't.
open air arcades. I miss those.
I miss the camaraderie when all your friends came with you or you would meet them there. I don't like playing video games with sticky joysticks and buttons that half work because some guy punched it in too hard.
Well, we try to punch it in hard for you every day here on Daily Tech News Show. And I hope our efforts are appreciated. We thank you for supporting us. And we'll be back tomorrow.
Bye.
And if you're a patron, stick around for this special message from Scott Johnson.
Listen.